Welcome to Where Are They Now? We reach into the archives of Lenape, Shawnee, Cherokee, and Seneca High Schools and invite selected alumni to share memories and fill us in on their career paths after commencement. Since Lenape's first graduating class in 1961, Shawnee's in 1972, Cherokee's in 1978, and Seneca's in 2005, over 72,000 individuals have received diplomas from these four schools.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Where Are They Now? I'm Mark Sensini, a 1996 graduate of Cherokee High School, and today we'll be talking with a Shawnee graduate from the class of 1992. She is the CEO and president of MB & Associates, public relations firm in Marlton, New Jersey and Manhattan, as well as an author. And I'd like to welcome Mindie Barnett to the show today. Mindie, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure. It's so exciting.
That's awesome. It's
I'm
great
so
to have
proud
you.
to be a Shawnee alumna. 1992.
We won't hold that against you. Just kidding. So before we start, one of our people in the control room, she wanted to name this show the Mark and Mindie Show.
Oh,
So,
I love it.
cute.
Very cool. No, you never know in the future, right?
Maybe there's something there. Okay, so let's talk about, before we get into high school, let's talk about how you got to Shawnee. You grew up in Medford?
I did. Yep. So I basically had my whole childhood in Medford. I went to Haynes Elementary School, and then I went to Marlton. Oh, sorry. I went to Medford Middle. Memorial
Medford
is what
Memorial.
I wanted to say.
Okay.
Yeah. And then obviously Shawnee. And my parents are still in Medford.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah, they are no longer in the home that I grew up in, but
Okay.
they moved a little closer to Shawnee. Of course, after I graduated
Right,
from
that would've been
Shawnee,
helpful
makes complete
when you were
sense.
there.
But yeah. So I come back to Medford a lot.
And siblings that went to Shawnee?
I did, yeah. So I have a younger sister, Carolyn.
Okay.
Her married name is Kellerman, and she graduated Shawnee in '96, the year I graduated from college.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so about your time at Shawnee, some of the activities you were involved in, cheerleading,
Yep.
Shawnee Singers, Shawnee
Yep.
Digest, and the drama. Tell us about those.
Well, cheerleading, I guess always loved to perform. I mean, that's why I went into TV news, which I know you'll get into a little later. I married my love for writing and my love for the stage. But cheerleading was probably a very impactful activity for me. I actually, in my book, and I know we'll talk about that later too,
Yep.
but I write about, trying out for the cheerleading squad, and I never really cheered as a kid. A lot of, my, colleagues or peers, if you will, they were, in LYAA and
Right.
doing a lot of that kind of stuff. And so I just I knew I wanted, most girls I want to be a cheerleader.
Right.
So I tried out, and unfortunately, even though I was a really strong dancer and I had those skills in terms of memorizing routines and
Yep.
things like that, I didn't make it, which was really, really upsetting. But rather than just sulk, I went to the coach at the time, who was Miss Oberg, and I asked her for advice, and she told me that, things I needed to work on. And I guess being that I was 14 at the time, she was impressed with I guess the way I was looking at the defeat and trying to turn it into a positive.
That's a very mature thing to do at that age.
Well, it was with a little coaching by my father.
Okay.
I can't tell a lie, but
That's
it was
what high
still,
school kids need sometimes.
Yes, very true, but it was still intimidating, and I was very
Yeah.
not certain I wanted to do that at first, but then I thought maybe I should. So I'm glad I did, because then she had allowed me to be the mascot, which really was almost like a cheerleader itself. It sounds worse, well, not that it's bad, but I wore a cheerleading outfit, more or less, and did all the cheers with all the girls, and at the time it was just a female squad. Now I know there's guys involved too. Actually, we were the first squad that had men at Shawnee.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was really fun my senior year. But anyway, I improved my skills and made the basketball squad, and then went on to be a captain a little bit later on, and I cheered all 4 years, through senior year, and I even went into college and I cheered for a year. It was a very different experience in college versus high school in terms of the commitment
Sure.
and things like that, so I only did it my freshman year, but it was awesome, and I learned a lot about myself. I mean, I had a really good time and made great friendships, and it was amazing school spirit, being at pep rallies and leading it and doing the pom-pom routines and all all of that. But in terms of like myself and growth, for me, it was very, very profound. So
good.
Yeah.
And you mentioned friendships. Any friends that you still keep in touch with from Shawnee?
I do. So I'm still very, very close with my BFF Heather Brown, who's now Heather Somerville.
Okay.
She still lives in, well, yeah, she lives in Medford. She's a teacher in Medford Lakes.
Okay.
She left and came back. And via her, because she's still kind of like engrossed with a lot of the Medford peeps, if you will,
Yeah.
I see a lot of other friends on a pretty frequent basis. Jennifer Somerville, who is her sister-in-law, who used to be Jennifer Thomas. I keep in touch with Stacy, now Skolnick, who is Stacy Manjone in high school. She's one of my very dear friends. She lives in my neck of the woods in Voorhees, so I see her a little bit more frequently than some of the others. And in New York, I got reconnected with another dear high school friend, Kristen Franz, who now lives in Manhattan. She's lived there for a number of years, and so I'm seeing her this weekend, in fact. Like, we get together a lot when I'm in New York for dinners and see the Knicks games and things like that. So yeah, and I want to just mention too, like some of the other activities, like singing at Shawnee, like Shawnee Singers was really amazing, and all the school shows that I did, I loved too. And you know, I got very involved with Shawnee Digest, which was like a platform for me to move forward into, you know, television news later on in my life. And I, you know, had nothing but good experiences to share about Shawnee.
That's great. And you mentioned Terry Oberg.
Yes.
From
Cheerleading. I forgot her first name. She's Miss Oberg to me.
Yes, you can call them first names now.
Yes.
It's okay. But then you also, I know Jeff Loudon had a big impact on you, Mrs. Labriola.
Huge.
Mr. Steinmetz.
Yes, Mr. Steinmetz, all of them, but yeah, Mr. Steinmetz especially,
And,
because he gave me my first taste of reporting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Margaret Fenner, I guess you mentioned her as well.
Yep. She was fantastic in drama, like giving me like the opportunities and direction and things like that. So yeah, all good people.
Good. So you graduated Shawnee, now you're off to Hofstra University, and you're going in as broadcast journalism.
Right.
Tell us about that.
Right. So I specifically selected Hofstra and other schools I applied to solely for their comm departments, because I knew, like, early on, thanks to Mr. Steinmetz, that's what I wanted to do. And immediately got involved in HTV, Hofstra Television, with reporting, and, you know, knew I wanted to do, because I had done some things at Shawnee, actually, in the mass media classes, that TV was the track I wanted to take. So you learn a little bit about all of the parts of journalism, print, and magazine and graphic design and radio and all that. But once I got into, I guess, like sophomore, junior, I was focused solely, at least in the majors courses, on the television track. So I did a lot of that. I did internships pretty much starting in my sophomore year. I interned at 6ABC.
Okay, right here in Philly.
It was very cool, and I remember getting the option to either have like a 9 to 6 shift or the AM shift. And I asked at the time the assistant news director, who was like the intern coordinator, I said, well, which one is going to be better for me? I don't really know. I mean, I don't think I realized the AM shift meant getting up in the middle of the night, but even still, he said, well, Mindy, the 9 to 6 shift, you're going to be at the assignment desk, and that's good experience, but you're basically going to be kind of like very behind the scenes, whereas the morning show, there's obviously a lot less staff, so they're going to be relying on you more heavily to actually do like real, quote, jobs in a sense. So I said, oh, well, then I want to do that. So I would get up every day in the summer when I did the internship at, I think, like maybe 3 a.m., which is really late for a morning show. But when you're like, I guess, so how old was I at the time? Like maybe 19. That's like, oh my gosh.
Just went to bed.
So I was like driving over the Ben Franklin Bridge in the middle of the night, and then I would get to the station, and I helped with like all of like the behind the scenes. I remember O.J. Simpson when he first got arrested that summer, and like ripping the scripts, and like there was all these like new developments coming through like that day, like that morning during the morning show, and we're like bringing new versions of the scripts to like the anchors. So I worked really closely with Monica Malpass, who's still at 6ABC, as well as Rick Williams, who's still at 6ABC. Rick and I actually still keep in touch pretty frequently. He's a New Jersey resident, and Monica too, but I guess because he's on this side of the bridge, I tend to like see him more. But they were incredible mentors. Monica, I was basically her assistant after the show was over, and helped do like interviewing, like pre-interviewing, like for subjects that she was looking to possibly do stories on, to get her the who, what, when, where, how kind of stuff, to decide whether or not she wanted to move forward with it. And that was amazing. And then I befriended an editor who I'm still in touch with, Keith Proctor, who's still at 6ABC, and he was kind enough to help me do my resume tape. Okay. So I basically retracked stories that were done by other reporters, and he helped me with a stand-up. And I mean, looking back now, I was horrible, but but it was really, really cool. Yeah, and then he connected me with my next internship, like getting me involved with something I did in Chester County, Pennsylvania, which was actually reporting like 2 years in a row over the summertime. Okay. And I did some stuff when I was abroad too. So I'm, you know, while I loved my time at Hofstra, and obviously that was like necessary and tremendous in terms of like experience and education for my career, I would never have been able to do what I did after school without those internships. For sure.
Well, and it's great that you had real experiences at those internships. You weren't just getting coffee. You weren't. You were actually doing stuff and involved with things. And so that I'm sure made a big difference also.
Absolutely, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Okay.
And now as like a business owner, when I take interns, I make sure that they're not just getting coffee and they're not just running errands, because I want them to have a similar experience to the internships that I had, because you know, it's like karma. What goes around comes around. So I always try to give back and help, because I was helped so much.
So tell us about your study abroad that was in Israel, right?
Yep.
What was that like?
That was amazing. So, all right, so I'm Jewish, and growing up in Medford, there wasn't many other peers that were Jewish. In fact, I graduated with 512 students, and I believe I was one of two, which, whatever, it's all good. But I say this because Judaism wasn't really a strong part of my growing up. I mean, I knew I was Jewish, we celebrated the holidays, but I basically, like, bailed on Hebrew school, like wasn't important to me, and things like that. So then I went to Hofstra, which was had a very strong Jewish, student body, and became involved in a Jewish sorority, and wasn't becoming this really religious person, but it was sort of like understanding my faith and like culturally more so than anything. So then study abroad came about, and I was torn between either going to London, where I had some friends from school going, or Israel, where I knew at the time, I should say, one of my friends was going to be going. And while Israel was scarier because it was further away, and the terrorism obviously was a factor, and certainly the religion was an issue, and not religion, sorry, the language was an issue. I remember having this conversation with my parents, and being that I was Jewish, I thought that was like, they thought, and I agreed that that was important for me, just to go, because you never know what the future holds there, like God forbid, like that kind of stuff. And secondly, just as a journalism major, it was like so much going on a day-to-day, I mean, it still is, but it was like in '95 when I was there, so it was the height of a lot of like the bomb scares and like the bombings and things like that. The Gaza was a big issue. So I decided to go, and then my one friend that I had going decided not to go. And then I was like hesitant, maybe I should go back to London, like maybe I should do that. And then I decided to do Israel, and it changed me. It changed me tremendously. It really opened my eyes up to the world. I became more independent. I only had myself. I mean, I certainly made friends there. I also didn't get housing, I neglected to say earlier on, which was also a factor in my possible changing to go to London. We overbooked my trip with students, so I studied at the University of Tel Aviv, but I didn't live on campus because they didn't overbooked it, as I said, so I had to find housing when my parents helped me. But off campus in Herzliya, which was beautiful and on the beach, but it was like a 30-minute commute, so I was taking the bus every day with like, Israelis, and it was just, I mean, it was scary. It was very far from my family. Email wasn't what it was today, is today. I think once a week I went to the computer lab to like, my dad was the only one who had access to the email because he was a principal at a school, and not our schools, but whatever. Anyway, so he would like write me, and he was a horrible typer. I remember he would like write me 2 sentences. Like, that's what I get. I know, with his fingers probably, I'm like, oh my God, you could get your secretary to dictate. And then I would write him like a whole thing. And I only talked to them on the phone maybe twice a week because it was like really expensive. And we didn't have cell phones then with, like minutes and blah, blah, blah. It was just, it's a lot, but it was, I think about Israel every day. I'm not exaggerating. Every single day, I don't want to sit there and dwell about it, but like every day I think about something related to that time in my life, and I'm so thankful that I was given that opportunity and that I was brave enough to seize it.
Yeah. It's a eye-opening, life-changing, as you said, experience,
Yeah.
especially at that age too. So you mentioned life and work came along, so let's talk about that. You graduate Hofstra and you're reporting.
Right.
And you did a lot of reporting work in New York City and in Philadelphia, but you didn't start out there. It's hard to start out in those places. Where did you get your start?
Well, I was very driven and very focused on getting a job. So I started applying to stations within a certain mile radius of my home. By a certain mile radius, I think it was like maybe 200 or 300 miles.
Okay.
So I was like going to like maybe even further. I remember applying to like Johnstown, Pennsylvania, like smaller markets where I
Yeah.
thought I would realistically be able to get on air. I was told that if you want to be on air, it's better to start small
Right.
on air and work your way back as opposed to starting at a big place and not doing exactly what you want to do and then hoping to get that big break
Yeah.
or whatever. But anyway, so I was blessed that I didn't have to go through like super far, and I got a job in Toms River, New Jersey, which at the time was Adelphia Cable. Now I think it's owned by Comcast. They acquired them, and they had a daily live 30-minute newscast called Ocean County Newswatch 8.
Okay.
And I was a reporter and a fill-in anchor there, and you know, the show, looking back, wasn't all that amazing. I mean, it was good for what we had, you know, for the resources we had, but it was a hotbed for news.
Yeah.
So it gave me an incredible resume,
Yeah.
you know, and so within about a year, I was like
You had
able
all
to get
these
another
big
job.
stories.
Yeah, so I left, and then I went to actually Fox 29, where I did go behind the scenes a little bit, and I was a segment producer, but I did that in tandem with working on air for another station in New Jersey,
Okay.
kind of similar to Toms River, but a little bit bigger and a little closer to home. And then I went to News 12, which is based in Edison. I covered, you know, while I was there, I jumped around a little bit to some other stations, but some of the bigger stories were like I covered 9/11. I was at Ground Zero on 9/12 the next day after the towers fell, covering.
What was that like?
Oh my gosh, it was. It's surreal. That's the only way I can explain it. I mean, you almost become numb because you have to be able to tell your story,
Yeah.
right? On my angle, I mean, we had a lot of. I mean, we basically slept at the station for a week that during that time. Like we weren't really able to go home. We were just sort of relieving each other
Right.
off of shifts. But I was covering the volunteers that came from all over the country they just got in their cars and just drove down.
Yeah, I remember.
And you know, they brought supplies and like nobody knew what was going to be going on.
Yeah.
So it was just, I mean, it was not that it was positive, but it was like sweet to
Yeah.
see that as a human race and like America
together,
was
yeah.
just kind of becoming one. So that was incredible. But the day before that, I wasn't technically at Ground Zero, but I remember I was in town. I moved back because I was supposed to do something in entertainment, and I was freelancing at News 12 at the time, just to, you know, while I was waiting for this other opportunity to come to fruition. And I saw the towers hit. I was watching like Live with Kelly and Regis or Kelly
Right.
or whatever, and I called. I'm like, "Do you want me to come in?" They're like, "Yes, please, just come." So everybody was just driving to the station that we're on that day, and they sent me to Jersey City, and I was supposed to cover the Red Cross set up like a staging facility there for the victims. The thought was that there were going to be victims.
Yeah.
And they were going to be taking care of them, and like my story angle changed from covering like the victims and what they were doing to help the victims to the fact there really weren't any victims.
Right.
It was quiet as could be. It was so eerie. It was just beyond. And then through the year, we covered like a lot of other things. I mean, I did a lot of stuff in Cranberry with the widow of the the man who saved crashed the plane that went into Pennsylvania.
Yep.
Yeah, I covered her and her courage and what she was trying to do after the fact and try to turn some good into her husband's death and
Right.
obviously the tragedy that occurred throughout America. And then we covered like all of the brave first responders, like some of them that made it out and they were honored throughout the year, and just different things, or just like family members that lost family members and like sons and daughters or
Right.
husbands like that were in the towers, or a woman gave birth like on 9/11 and her husband died in the tower, like just stories like that.
Yeah.
I remember like the first day or two, like I just was numb, like I just didn't. I didn't really stop because it was like go, 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 go. And then
Give you a
like,
chance to
and then
process
and then as you know, through the year, like every day I didn't cover 9/11 stories,
Yeah.
but like I'd say in 5 days a week, probably 2 or 3 of those stories were definitely related to 9/11. I would come home driving because I was like living in South Jersey and I was commuting to North Jersey, crying in the car just because I had like my emotions were
Get it
just
out,
like pouring out of me from, you know, but you have to be so strong when you're doing this story. You can't really act like that on camera. Your mind is just in a different place. It's weird. You're almost becoming human. Like not like that you're cold, but you have to be like
to be able to do your job.
You have to pull yourself out of yourself to interview these people, ask the hard questions, be empathetic, but ask the hard questions. Spit it back to people at home with seeming compassionate, but not like weak, crying. Like they don't want to see a reporter crying. You know, it's just So anyway, I guess that's where my acting skills may have came into place. I don't know.
So all right, so you do that for how many years?
10. So
Okay.
I did TV for 10. I worked, obviously, as we said, at News 12. I covered also Governor McGreevey. For a while, I was a State House reporter for News 12. That was really cool. I worked in Louisiana, which was an incredible experience. I was an anchor for NBC affiliate KTVE in Monroe, Louisiana. And then my last gig, as we say, in TV was at in Champaign, Illinois at WICD-TV. I was a morning anchor Monday through Friday for the NBC station there when Obama was running for Senate, actually. So I did some stuff in Springfield when he was there. But anyway, so I was hitting 30, my age, and at the time I was getting very burnt out because the majority of my career, other than that time in News 12, was a morning person. As you probably can tell from talking to me, I'm somewhat bubbly, and at the time I looked much younger than I do today, and so I was just like, I lent myself, like I was always just like cast on like the morning shows because my personality, my youth appearance, like all of that, like just lent itself to that, and that was fine because I enjoyed it. The hours were just brutal. So you know, unlike 6 ABC and the intern getting up at whatever time, 3, I was getting up closer to like 1:32 because now I had to get up, get showered, do my hair, my makeup, get to the station, read the scripts. Like you know, thankfully I was blessed to have a producer. When he wasn't there, I had to be in at midnight to write the show too, and then anchor the show. I was, you know, for 2 hours at the time. It was a 2-hour live show. Do cut-ins, then go out and do reporting. I was exhausted, so it was a lot, and the money's not great. You know, at least when you're starting out, like, you know, towards the end of my stint, I was doing okay financially, but it was just like the hours. I was off track with the rest of the world. It was me and my then dog Sydney, like my buddy. I wasn't dating. It was, I mean, it was hard. I was, you know, like,
you don't have time for anything else.
Or just like you're tired. Even on the weekends when I wasn't really working, I was like, but come 8 o'clock for me, it felt like midnight. So I was like, oh, I have to go to bed. You know, like, like, oh, lots of fun this date, like, great, like, you know. So, and then my mom got sick. She's fine now, not good, but at the time she wasn't great, and I was flying home a lot on the weekends, which was difficult. So I just sort of said to myself, like, I think I'm ready to pursue PR, public relations, which is something that I thought about as my second choice for a career when I was at Hofstra and spent time working on that and things like that for the vice president, and spent time like making sure that I had a good foundation for that too, and wasn't just focused on television and building experience in that arena. So I decided that I was going to go work for, you know, for someone in PR. So I started applying to some places and was very picky and choosy about where I was going to go because it was basically giving something up that was part of who I was. Like, it was part of my identity. It wasn't just a job to me. So it was a very hard decision. I took this job and I worked for a PR firm in Center City, Philadelphia, which will remain nameless because it wasn't a great experience for me. I mean, I'll say this. I learned a lot from the person who owned it about how to run a business and how not to run a business. I learned, I knew how to pitch stories because I was on the receiving end of that for the, you know, basically my whole career at that point. I knew how to get people in the news. I knew what a reporter would be basically looking for if they were, you know, receiving a pitch, so that they weren't doing a commercial for like the person. They were doing something that was worthwhile to viewers, readers, or listeners, obviously. So that part came easy for me. And when I was working for the person, I was getting all these placements like really quickly, and I was like, I sort of felt like I could do this. Like, I don't need to be putting myself through this misery because she was not very nice, to say the least, about like just the treatment wise.
Yeah.
You know, great business person, just not the best people person behind the door. Not,
Gotcha.
you know, it sounds weird for PR, but you have to be a people person.
Well,
but,
yeah.
Yeah. But so I left and really had no plan for myself. I was like, I mean, I knew I had a job. I knew I had to get a job, but I really thought, okay, if that's PR, I don't know if that's really what I want. I mean, I thought I could do it myself, but then I was like, how am I going to get clients? It's going to be hard. You know, I think I had some naysayers in my ear, like, you're never going to be able to get clients. Like, you can get them on TV, but how are you going to do that? Because I never was a sales. I mean, I would sell my stories, but I never sold myself, right? So to like a prospect or whatever. So I was shopping in a store in Cherry Hill, and the owner of the store was very quiet, was just chit-chatting with me, and long story short, it came out that I was from television. I came back to work in PR, I left, and I was sort of just freelancing just to make ends meet, and was like not sure what I was going to do. It was only a short time. It was like maybe 2 weeks I was like not working really, like other than freelancing. It wasn't like this long period of time. So she said, hey Mindy, you know, I need some PR. They just moved stores, and she rebranded herself, and she said, what if we help each other? And I didn't want to make this long commitment because I didn't really know what my future was going to hold and things like that. But I knew I did need some money, and I knew that I could help her. So we sort of just worked out this like 6-month, like very like informal arrangement, and I was getting her all this media, and a lot of prominent people from the community happened to shop in that store. For instance, the owner of Foreman Mills, his wife shopped there. So she said to the owner, how are you getting all this exposure? I mean, she was on Fox 29, she was on NBC 10, she was on the Daily News, like in some magazines, and she said, oh, I have a publicist. So she said, oh, my husband really could use her. So she put me in touch with the husband, so then Foreman Mills became a client. Then I was getting my hair done at a salon that I went to through high school, and the owner was asking like, oh, because what are you doing? Every time I would come home and visit with my family, I would get like my hair colored, highlighted, cut, whatever.
Right.
And I said, no, I'm actually living here now. I mean, for now, I'm doing some PR, and he said, oh, we could use PR. So then he became a client. So surely, sooner than later, I had like 5 clients, like within 3 months, and then by
without even really trying. It's
no, it was all organic.
It
was all. I like really didn't try at all. In fact, I was almost hesitant because I was like, oh, it's one more commitment. Oh, it's one more commitment. Then I got this job offer to be an anchor up in Scranton, which was a decent feeder market to Philadelphia, and then I had already met my then husband. Well, he was my boyfriend at the time, but it was like, you know, and it was going into a serious mode. And, you know, he actually was the one to say, don't take the job, or I don't think you should take the job. I didn't say don't take it, because he's like, you have this business where you're just going to abandon your business. And I said, what business?
You're like, I do?
I'm like, what are you talking about? I have a business? And he's like, yeah, you have like, you're doing really well. Like, so I thank him for that, because I think if he hadn't said that, I probably would have taken that job. And not to say that would have been a mistake. I mean, life is, it's funny, I just made a post about this today. Life is all about choices and decisions, which leads you to the next choice and decision. In fact, Michelle Obama said, I think this is what resonated in my head because I read her book, and she said that. So your path in life is basically formed by all these smaller decisions that you're making, not necessarily this grand decision. It's a bunch of small ones that lead up to the road that you wind up taking. So not to say that would have been a bad road, that may have even been better, who knows? But I do believe that this was my calling, and I think everything in life happens for a reason, and you know, I needed to have that conversation with him at the time so that I was going to follow the right path for me. So that's the best way to look at it, right? So anyway. So
it worked out. So you've had your own business now, MB and Associates, since 2003?
Yes, started in December of 2003 and just turned 15.
Okay, terrific.
Thank you.
And so basically what you do is you take, as you said, clients or even sometimes individuals, right? And you get them placed on TV or on the news.
Right, we brand them. So we work on, now we do a lot of their social media too, which is like a whole new division that we had to obviously embrace, to say the least. But yeah, so we work a lot on getting them opportunities in, like, depending on what their industry is. So we do work with medicine, we do doctors, we do hospitals, we do lawyers, retail, lifestyle, culinary, you name it. Pretty much anybody can get PR. So we will look at what their business model is, what their area of expertise is, and based on what's trending, what's making headlines, or just a compelling case they might have, or some sort of like unique thing that they're doing in the marketplace, we'll formulate a story idea, and I will specifically pitch it to a member of the media. So I will send a story to, say, like a reporter at the Philly Inquirer if it's a Philly story, or I just did something in the New York Times, which was more obviously national based. We do things specifically, working hopefully, fingers crossed, to get an opportunity with the Today Show with one of the doctors I work with this about a case he's working on. So I mean, they're all specific. We aim to secure at least one placement a month for each client, which is a significant amount of earned media, which is very hard to get, especially on your own. And it's credible for these people. It's better than advertising.
Sure.
Sometimes you need to, but it's much more credible. Their message is like much longer. They have somewhat of control in terms of like what they're saying and how they're positioning it and things like that via our expertise. And it's win-win. And then we also do, as I said, like the social media. So we will, for most clients, also marry their mainstream media, as I call it, a campaign with the social media element. So we'll, work depending on what their area is. If it's like more lifestyle, like consumer-based type of a business, we'll do obviously Facebook and Instagram, and we'll, create very compelling content with all calls to action. So it's not just random likes, like people are looking like, they're actually engaging. They're going to your website, they're reading about an article, they're seeing you quoted in something. We work on audience building so that their audience reach is greater and it's growing every month. It's very strong. I mean, at first I was like, Facebook? But now, you have to do it. And guess what? It's sometimes more impactful, dare I say, to get like an influencer to write about something than being like on the front page of a main paper, because they're authentic, people believe them, their followers are true and they're loyal, and usually whatever the influencer's gonna say, they're doing. So it behooves us to like embrace that, and it's obviously working for the clients too. So we offer that. I have a whole other division that does all of that too.
And it's something I think a lot of people don't think about when they watch, or they're reading something on Facebook, or they watch something on TV, whether it's a Today Show or a late night show or whatever, and you see these guests, and people don't really think about it. It's not like they just call up and be like, hey, can you be on our show?
Right.
Like, there's a lot going on behind the scenes to get those people there.
Right. I mean, unless you happen to be in the height of like a big breaking news story, then they're calling and banging on your door for a comment and get you on the show. I mean, whoever gets you booked first is like the winner, or you're trying a big case, or you're a well-known authority, like criminal lawyer or whatever, contributor. No, but usually they have someone like me behind the scenes, like working on their behalf as their cheerleader.
So what's your favorite part of your job now?
The thing that I like the best is when I am in a situation or presented with something, a situation where I'm actually able to use the resources that I know and work with to help someone else. And I'll give you an example. So this is a while ago, and I've done a lot of other opportunities like this since then, but this was like something that was like one of my most proud moments of being in PR. So there was this woman. Her name is Shayna West, and now it's Shayna West Richardson, who is out in the Midwest. I forget where exactly, maybe Montana, something like that.
Okay.
Anyway, she went parachuting, right? And her parachute did not deploy, and she wound up falling to on her face. And was lucky to be alive. I mean, most people would have died on impact. She broke pretty much every bone in her body, including all of the bones in her face, and knocked out all of her teeth. She was rushed to the hospital. The fact that she lived was tremendous and made national headlines. But what they found out when she was in the hospital was that she was pregnant, and she didn't know that, and the baby survived as well.
Wow.
So now she was being covered by like all of these national. It's like one of those, like we were saying, who gets the interview first?
Yep.
I mean, everybody was flocking to right. So she got fixed up, patched up. The baby, came and was delivered safely. But I read, or actually one of the colleagues that were working for me at the time in Touch magazine, which was like Us Weekly or what have you, that she was so thankful and grateful for all of the doctors that donated their time and to fix her up and everything. And obviously she had this beautiful baby, that she always loved her smile, and she had to now wear like these like in and out like denture type things, and it was just like she was young. She was in her early 20s, and she just didn't feel good about herself. And at the time, I was working with this incredible periodontist, Dr. Alan Meltzer, who still practices in Voorhees, a thought leader in his industry, like travel all over the world lecturing and stuff like that. And I approached him and I said, hey, what would you think about donating a new smile to this woman? Because if you do, and you can, I'm pretty confident to say I'm going to be able to get you a lot of media for it. So obviously he wanted to give back because he's a good person, but then like the additional like icing on the cake would be all this exposure. So I did my due diligence, putting on my reporter's hat, researched her, found her information like via the reporter from that magazine that reached out to her. There's a lot of legwork. It took a good month and a half or so before I actually connected with this woman, Shawnee, and then when I did, she was very excited, and then he flew her in for a consultation, and long story short, well, it's too late now, he donated the smile. They were on Oprah, they were on GMA, they were on Inside Edition, they were on the Today Show, they were in like pretty much every national newspaper. It was incredible. So it was this amazing PR spread, but I was so happy to be able to be, not that I gave her the teeth, but to be the middleman between the two and make it happen. And, she and I were Facebook buds, and, I see her, we still, like, I don't talk to her every day, but we still stay in touch. Yeah. And she thanked me just as much as she thanked him. Like, that was amazing. And that was the thing about TV or being in news, I should say. I mean, it was only in TV really, that I liked the most too. It's not what I thought. I mean, I went into television to broadcast journalism because I loved to be on stage, and I like to write, and I thought, great, I'll marry the two. Yeah. But once I was in it, it was when the cameras went off and I was able to like get into, like, further not necessarily the story, but my exchange and my, I guess, minor relationship with the subjects of the story. Like if it was a family who lost their home in a fire and maybe they didn't have the wherewithal to like know who to call, or being able to say, hey, let's talk for a second. Like, I mean, I didn't sit there for hours, but I didn't just like say, okay, bye, I'm out of here, my story's done. I helped them, and that made me feel good as just like a human being, And so
it becomes personal for you.
Yeah, I like to like give back in any way I can. So that's probably my most rewarding part of being in PR, because now I have all these great experts at my disposal, and when I see the opportunities like present itself, I'm able to like call on them to help people that otherwise would not necessarily have the help. Right.
That's great that you do that.
Thank you. Sorry, I talk a lot.
No, it's okay. That's what the show's, that's why we're here. So your business is going well, very successful, but things in your personal life maybe not as much at this point in time where we are. And and you make the decision to get divorced.
Right, I did. So I was married, as you know, obviously, and he's a great guy, and we're really good friends. We have what I usually say, people don't understand that we're even divorced because we get along really well. Not that it's lovey-dovey, but it's basically similar to what it was when we were married in terms of just being really good friends, like more brother-sister. So I just felt like for me, I wanted more, and sort of like in news and even in PR, like I'm always like try to overachieve. Not that I was trying to overachieve in my relationship, but like I knew what Mindy needed wasn't what I was necessarily receiving in that relationship. So I just took a leap of faith and thought, okay, well, I'd rather be on my own and alone than feel like I'm alone and being married. But it was obviously I had children, and I was not just making a decision for myself. I was making a decision, well, for him too, but like for the kids. And I stayed in that relationship much longer than I would have had because of the kids, basically. But then I realized that I wasn't really doing them any service by doing that. So not that we fought, but I also wanted them to see like for me, I grew up in a very loving, warm environment between my mom and dad, who are still very much like that today. And I wanted them to see that too. And if they weren't going to see that, I just wanted them to see my love. Not I just didn't want them to emulate that later on in life and think that that was okay.
And they pick up on a lot of that you don't think that they do, but they see it, even if it's not, like you said, even if you're not fighting. It's,
right, exactly.
They get the vibe of what's going on.
Right, exactly. So I thought, like, I was just like scary because I didn't know what the impact was going to have on them. And it's like one of those things that you don't know until you do it. And once you do it, there's really no turning back. So finally, after a long time of just stewing and thinking and going, talking to lots of different people, I decided to just go ahead and just, broach the subject with him and like move forward with that. And so we did, and it turned out a lot better than I have ever anticipated. In fact, I'm now being branded as a co-parenting expert, using the book obviously as a platform because I talk a lot about that in the book as well, and how to do it peacefully and look at it as like more from a business standpoint as opposed to like a relationship standpoint, to try to avoid the fighting and look at the child as the client almost, like who you're looking out for, what's in the best interest of your child. Unfortunately, a lot of emotions get involved in when there's heated things going on between like the mom and dad, and the child's not always, well, that's the focus, it's not always the focus, if you know what I mean. So anyway, so we got divorced, and it was sort of like the reasoning of writing the book, but then it turned into like a bunch of life lessons in general. But now I'm divorced, and well, I'm not exactly where I hope to be like 5 or 6 years from now in terms of my personal life. I would like to have a partner one day. I really do want to get remarried. I don't have to. I'm very, self-sufficient, and I have tons of great friends, and I have the love of my kids, and I'm very, very blessed with a lot of things. But it would be nice to share it with somebody. But I'm definitely, not going to just settle, and sadly, or not sadly, I guess, I don't have a lot of spare time at the given moment to to actively date. So it's like if people come into my life and it works out that we can hang out, great, but I'm not like one of those like on the apps and things like I just don't have. I tried, I just don't have time. Like I just like no one. I'm like I'll see you in like 3 months. Like it's hard and it's awkward. If you have to, it's like you need to have the commitment, and it's unfair to other people on the other receiving end if you're not fully committed. It's not that I don't want to be committed. I just physically can't be at the moment.
Well, you're running your own business. You're a single parent. So it doesn't leave a lot of time.
Right, exactly. So I'm just like, I'm not closed off. I definitely want that, but like, I think like when it's the right time, it'll fall into place with that. So I'm still trucking along. So it's okay, but I have other things that keep me busy and happy and fulfill me right now.
And one of those obviously is the book. The book is called Intermission. How Fervor, Friendships, and Faith Took Me to the Second Act. So it's not all about just being divorced, but it's about a lot of other things too. So tell us.
So it starts off with like deciding to get divorced, and then the end of Act 1 when I decide to get divorced, and then my intermission begins. So as you going back to Shawnee on the stage, I love the theater, and I love Broadway, and just clicked on me. Like I knew I was gonna like. For the title of the book, I was like, should it be like Act 2, like starting over, like something like that? And I said, no, because it's really like the pause in between Act 1 and Act 2 that I wanted to focus on. And to get back to what you were saying, yes, it starts off with a divorce, and it actually concludes with the aftermath of the divorce and where I am today. Through the book itself, it's a memoir written in my voice, and actually did an audiobook for it too, which was fun. I go back to different things that happened in my life, like either they're lessons that I learned, like one being that cheerleading episode I was telling you about. That was like my first real life lesson about setting a goal, not getting it, setting it higher and working harder and then getting it. Or it's just things like like different intermissions, like going from television to PR, and also leaning on faith, like becoming reunited with my Jewish fabric of my faith in Israel, and then, you know, relying on spiritual God, whoever, whatever your religion is, something greater, if you will. During times of trial, I went through infertility issues, which was very impactful early when I was married, and so I relied on God then. I have a chapter about that, and I suffer from hearing loss, which was a big blow to me. I found out about that later in life, and no one knows why, and it's like every year it's like scary going to the audiologist to get tested, because I'm in the communications industry, and you know, obviously being able to hear and speak is quite important. So like I talk a lot about that, and then you know, like just different things. So the goal of the book is really to help people feel as though they can have the courage and the strength to go make a life change and go from act 1 to act 2 and not lose yourself in the pause or the intermission, because that's where people can slip into depression or just feel paralyzed and not be able to go forward further into the act 2, you know. So I'm trying to give people like my point of view and just believing that you can do it, maybe to my own detriment, but it really hasn't turned out to be that way.
No.
I always just think I can do it, so I just do it. You know, I'm like, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Yeah.
At least I tried, right? It's worse than not trying and then never getting it, as opposed to trying and not getting it. So.
Well, you talk about not losing yourself, and that's what I was going to say before when you were talking about deciding on the title for the book, is whether it, you know, you mentioned starting over, and it's like, yeah, but you're still yourself.
Right.
Through all of this, you're not
Right.
changing who you are, you're just changing different aspects of what you're doing.
Exactly.
And learning life lessons along the way, and that's really what you talk about in the book.
Exactly. I feel like I learned a lot about myself in this time too, more so than I lost myself a little bit just in the haste of life, like running the business and being a mom and like, you know, going from point A to point B, like, okay, you know, the rat race that we all live in. So it's not that I had this like, I can relax now and hit the day spa, but I just had a lot of reflection, a lot of time to reflect. I had to, you know, to kind of reground myself and like find my new path. So I think that's really important as well. And, you know, the reality is you don't go from act 1 to act 2 and everything's seamless and everything's happy and things are great. You're going to have there's going to be bad things. You're going to have some sad days. I still have some, you know, and you're going to have some bad days, and I still have quite a few of them. But, you know, that's just life, and it's what you do with that. And if you let it knock you down, or you just you pick yourself back up and you keep on going.
Yeah, make the next day better.
Yep.
So you're a publicist.
Yeah.
So obviously this book needs publishing.
Yes.
Or publicizing, excuse
Yes.
me. So do you have a publisher? Or do you self-publish? How did that?
I have a publisher, Post Hill Press, and they're a division, associated, I should say, with Simon Schuster, which is a big publishing house, I'm sure you know. So I was very, very lucky to get that. Another thing, I'm like, I'm gonna get a publisher, and I literally like, that's a whole other long story I'll spare you, but like it was very lucky and bizarre the way that came about.
So how is it for you having your company kind of
I'm the
get your
most
book
annoying
out
client
there?
you could ever ask for. I'm like, hey, what's up for today? What are you booking me today? I'm like, what are you doing today? No,
right. What are you doing for my book today?
I have one of my team members assigned to me, Rachel Morales, who's great, and I'm sure she's thrilled to have me as her client. So anyway, so she's basically taking on the brunt of the pitching.
Okay.
And so, you know, I mean, certain places I like they've become friends. I'll like be like, hey, Rachel's gonna send you a pitch open the email, you know, like that kind of thing. But really, I'm trying to stay out of it, other than behind the scenes, like telling her like, okay, can you try to get me on this show? Or but the good thing is I understand the industry. So while a client that we work with who doesn't have a clue about how like the media works and how you can't just call them up and be like, put him on or whatever, it's not her fault. She can't get the book. I could get it. You know what I mean? So yeah.
So where have you been besides visiting us today and talking about your book?
I mean, the book just came out, so I really wasn't able to do a ton because even though it was available on pre-sale for a number of months, you know, the likelihood is that most people wait and want to buy it when it's in the store. But I've done Good Day LA, I've done Good Day Philadelphia, I'm going to be doing Good Day Philadelphia again, I've done PHL 17, I'm doing that again. I had a book signing in Rittenhouse Square for the day after the book came out, and did some press in tandem with that in the Philly area. I did a signing at a very famous bookstore in Madison, Connecticut, and did some press associated with that in the New Haven, Connecticut market because it's obviously local.
Sure.
Working with the Today Show. Jenny McCarthy has like a radio show. Fox and Friends. Access Hollywood as like a co-parenting expert for like celebrity divorces and things like that.
So people can get your book wherever they buy
Yeah,
books.
wherever they sell books, Barnes & Noble, it's on Amazon, any independent bookstores, yeah, everywhere.
And
Target.
It's available paperback as well as digital, and you said an
Not
audiobook.
paperback yet,
Oh, okay.
it's hardback.
Okay, sorry.
Paperback maybe eventually,
Okay.
I guess depending on how many hardbacks sell,
Okay.
so buy the book. And, just kidding. And audio, yeah, and
Okay.
then yes, it's available digitally on Kindle as well.
Okay,
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Thank you.
So aside from doing that, which I don't know how you have any other time, but some other things that you're interested in, you like to volunteer with some organizations?
Yes, for some, when I'm able to, for some PR stuff, you know, they have events or I have clients that are looking to do an event, I partner them up and I help like, you know, work on behalf of the nonprofit. So we do, my mother's a breast cancer twice survivor, so we do a lot of stuff with Susan G. Komen because that's near and dear to my heart.
Sure.
We do a lot of stuff with the American Heart Association, Alex's Lemonade Stand Foundation. I've done some stuff in the past with the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, South Jersey chapter. I do things with my synagogue and the Jewish Federation from time to time as well. And, you know, school fundraisers for my kids and things like that. So, yeah. I mean, I was like the room mom.
I believe it.
Yeah, all of that. I mean, it's like, really? You're the room mom? Like, yeah, that's me. You're the room mom and then the board meeting. Yeah.
So you also like to exercise, you like running, you did a half marathon, right?
I did, yeah. So I got into running actually when I was going through my divorce as a release, and I've never been athletic, really. I mean, I was a cheerleader, but my, you know, that was pretty much the extent of that. So yeah, I got into that, and I enjoyed it so much. I just, like my personality, I take it to a whole other level of crazy, and I'm not saying it's crazy to run a marathon. For me, it was a little bit out there, but I did it, and it was fun. It was a great experience. I did it in Disney World, actually.
Oh, even better.
With a dear friend of mine, Janice Armstrong. We did it together. And I still run, and I just got a Peloton bike, so I do that at home. And when I'm able to, I dance. I at one point was taking like adult dance classes at Jazz Unlimited. I've had to put that on the back burner for a little bit because I don't have any time, but I love it, and I'd love to get back into singing. When I'm able to try to get into like the national anthem at a professional ball like game or something like that.
Oh, yeah,
I used to do that a lot when I was in news, so I've done that a little bit here and there.
Okay.
And one day I'd love to do a community theater. So.
Awesome. Any other goals or plans for the future?
Not right now. Just like
You've got enough on
I
your plate
really,
right
I
now.
mean, no. I mean, I'd like to maybe when I'm older, like possibly like run a workout like business. Like I'd love to do bar because I like ballet. But no, that's pretty much, that's like later. That's it. Right now I'm just trying to grow my PR firm and promote the book as much as I can. And I'm getting into public speaking. That, you know, I'm using the book as a platform for that, to do some motivational speaking. So I guess that's like my personal next goal. And it would also be good for the PR firm too, because then I'd be in front of executives and stuff like that, and it'd be win-win. I would be able to motivate them and get paid to speak, but then possibly also garner their business. So.
Right. Terrific. Well, we congratulate you on all your success so far.
Thanks.
And wish you
Thanks for
continued
having
success
me.
with the book. It's been great having you here.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure.
Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
That'll do it for this episode of Where Are They Now? To find more Lenape District alumni interviews, you can visit us on youtube.com/Lenape District TV. We'll see you next time.